So you're getting ready to close and put your first or your next self-storage project into service. Let's talk about what I think in today's world are some of the best practices for putting your first or your next storage project into service. My name's Mark Helm. I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and I'm the creator of the Quick Start Academy. And what I do is I support the small investor who wants to get in the self-storage business or who wants to grow their self-storage business, strategically do so in a way that creates true wealth and a fulfilling career. So we're in the Getting Started series, which is a series on what I think are the best practices for getting started in today's self-storage business. And this is the final episode of how to put a storage project into service. Now, when you're getting ready to close, it's an exciting time and a nervous time, and I tell you, I'm never more nervous than I am as we're closing or right after we've closed on a deal. Now, it's up to us to make this project do what we said it's going to do. There is no right way to put a storage project into service. There's nothing I can say or guarantee if you do this, and this, your storage project will be great. A lot depends on what your business strategy is and what your strategy for this project is. What I want to do is cover some of the, at a high level, some of the spaces that need to be thought about. So, prior to the closing, after we've removed the contingencies and we're moving towards the closing itself, we really go into action. Here's are some of the things we do in the pre-closing period. You want to make sure that your operating system that you're going to use to run that facility is accurate and correct the day it closes. So once the contingencies are removed, we make sure that all of the customer data from the current facility is transferred or inputted into, we use SiteLink, but into our SiteLink program. We rely on our vendor quite a bit. Very often we can upload the data to them, they input the data, we review it, they input our facility, how many units, they input our price list, they input all of the information, but they're in most cases the ones doing it. We're checking it. Once it's in there, then what we do is we update it daily. We coordinate with the current owner and try to get daily closes, who's moved in, who's moved out, and we mirror in our operating system what's actually going on at the facility between the time that that operating software vendor tells us the program is ready till the time we close. The goal is the day you close, you just walk in, pull their computer out, plug your computer in, and you're not missing a beat. Also, before the closing, getting your credit card processing ready. In our business today, more and more of our income comes through credit cards. 50, 40 on the low end to 75% on the high end. Credit cards, the more automatic payments you have, the smoother your facility is going to run financially. But at least my experience is it really takes something to get that set up, get that integrated with our operating system. And I can't tell you, it must be my karma, but I have had more issues when I was setting the facilities up with these credit card vendors than almost anything I did. It was very frustrating. It's best that on day one you can take all the major credit cards. And during this pre-closing, this is when you've got to finalize employees if you're going to have any. Now, this is a huge subject. I cover it in a lot of detail in some of the classes at the Quick Start Academy and other training at Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage.com. And I don't want to go into a lot of detail here, but just some general comments on it. If you're going to keep or consider keeping some of the employees that are currently working there, it's important that they have filled out an employment application. They know that the first, 30, 60, 90 days is a trial basis, and you have some training ready to go of what you expect. Sometimes it's hard. I found it's often hard to switch an employee from one culture into another culture at the same facility. We've done it with some success, and we've done it without some success. But if you're going to keep them, make sure that you do everything with that employee there that you would do with someone being hired off the street. Run background checks on them. That's very important. We will not hire someone without running a background check on them. Also, make sure that you have all your bank accounts open and ready to go. And specifically with your bank, at least for a period of time, it's important that they know that if some of the checks are made out to the old company that's currently there and you're doing a name change, that for a time period your bank's going to accept those checks. There's a form that we have to fill out, but if our company name is Q2 Self Storage and we're buying ABC Storage, we're still going to get checks made out to ABC Storage, and it takes a month or two to get that sorted out. Make sure your bank will accept those checks. On the day of closing, immediately, and it's best if you can do it, but immediately do a lock inspection report. What you want to do is you want to walk around with a printout from the operating system, and you're going to look at that and look at unit number 1. It's rented, and you make sure there's a lock on there. Unit number 2 is vacant. Unit number 3 is overlocked. Unit number 4 is rented. 5 is rented. 6, and make sure that what's in reality matches what's in your operating system. You'll be surprised at some of the things we find in our first lock inspection walkthrough. We change the locks on the doors, change locks on vacant units if you have them. Also, make sure you do a close in your operating system day 1. It's important, do them every day. You don't want to you don't want to do closes once a week or twice a week. Do them every single day. That way, your deposit slips, your credit cards will all match up to the close report for that day. 10 years from now, anyone could pull up that day's close and match up the deposit with what's on the operating report and match up what's in the credit card deposit from that day's close. That's one of the best ways that you have of staying on top of it if you're not the one running the facility, and make sure that the employees are reporting everything correctly. Set up with your employees from day 1 what your expectations are. You expect a walkthrough twice a week. You expect to close every single day. And very often, especially if you have people that work for the previous owner, it's going to be different than what that previous owner did. Let them know what your expectations are. Have employees on day 1 sign that they have received your operations manual or your employee manual, and within a week have them sign that they've read it and that they've gone through it. I believe it's important to have an employee manual. Some of my partners in the past haven't, but I always want to have one. If you don't have one, you can go to the Self-Storage Association. They have a good one that's a starting place, and you can adjust it based on what your particular philosophies are. But I feel it's critical in today's environment to have an employee manual. Now, in the first 30 days, I want to talk about the culture you're going to create. Now, I know some of you may be rolling your eyes, culture, this is a storage facility, or I don't have any employees, or I only have 1 part-time employee. I don't give a dang about the culture. Well, you do, because you and your employees and your customers are going to all walk into an environment when they interact with your storage facility, and they're going to interact with your culture, and that culture is either going to be there by design or it's going to be there by default. My coaching is have it be there by design. What is the experience your customers are going to experience when they walk into your facility or they transact online with your facility? What's the experience that your employees are going to have when they show up for work? How much freedom are you going to give your employees? I know a number of people who say they want to hire people who are independent thinkers, can solve problems, and think on their feet, and then micromanage an employee and want to make every decision that there is. I'm not saying it's wrong that you want to be involved in making every decision, but what you don't want to do is tell someone that you want them to think independently and solve problems and then not let them be able to do that, or have there be negative consequences if they do that. Design how you want to relate to your employees and what you want your employees to do, and be clear about it, and then hire people who are good at that. People who need to be micromanaged are very different employees than people who will solve problems and think on their feet. I'm not saying one is better than the other, although I have my opinions, but you want to make sure that who you hire is a match for what you expect and the culture you're creating in your business. So in terms of best practices, the first 30 days, here's what I think they are. 1, make sure a close happens every day. Continue after 30, but especially in that first 30 days. Close happens every day. In a perfect world, the manager is closing it out and then putting the cash and the checks and everything into a safe. Then you or someone else takes it from the safe to the bank, and then a third person does the actual input into the computer. Now, I know that's not always possible. Very often we are the ones taking the money, the owners take it to the bank, and then the owners do the books. But I'm talking about a perfect world. What you don't want is somebody closing it out, taking the money and putting it in the bank, then generating all the financial reports. I'm not saying that employees are not honest. Most of them are. What you don't want to do is put someone in a position whereas if there is a problem and money is missing, they're set up to be the prime suspect. You just don't want to do that. Plus, especially if you've got partners and are working with other people's money, you have to have your financial systems in place. Make sure the the owner, make sure the deposit slips match the closing statement every single day. We often, even though we know the answers, I'll call the managers up and ask questions about what happened on Tuesday on this transaction. Are you sure it was a Visa? The number doesn't look like a Visa number or whatever. But I let them know that I'm looking at that closing statement, I'm matching the transactions, the check amount, the cash amount, and I'm matching all those up. You want to set up in the first 30 days in your operating system what the manager can and can't do. Can the manager give refunds? Can the manager discount? And set your operating system up to match what you're empowering the managers to do. Now, a good operating system will say on the close that we discounted 2 units today, or we waived the late fee today. You want to be real clear on what they can and can't waive and do, and then have your system set up so it informs you, the owner, what actually happened. Set up regular lock inspection reports. I expect our managers to do regular lock inspection reports, but now I don't do it anymore, but I have partners who do. But periodically you should do it, and you should show up unannounced, and you should print off the inspection report, walkthrough report, get a clipboard and go out and do it. And what that informs everyone is that you're on top of what's going on. You're making sure what's in the operating system is what's actually on the facility. And it's not that you don't trust, but you are a business owner who runs their business effectively. And just if anyone's ever thinking of doing something that perhaps they shouldn't do, but they know that you're doing lock inspection reports, that will stop a lot of the shenanigans that could possibly happen. Be clear with the managers in the first 30 days how you want that facility to look and what needs to be done on a daily basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis, yearly basis. If you're interested, you can click below. We have a facility inspection report that our operation manager uses when they do a facility inspection. And if you're interested in seeing some of the things we're interested in looking at, you can do it. But it's critical that the manager knows what to expect. When we have a vacant unit, when someone moves out, within 24 to 48 hours, we expect that unit to be ready to be rented. And what that means is that the unit is cleaned out. And when I say cleaned out, for us, I mean clean. The walls are washed. We'll roll the door down and the back of the door is clean. Done any maintenance required on the roll-up doors. The tracks have been sprayed with silicone. The door rolls up smoothly. If the floor's been mopped and clean, if there's a stain on the floor and we can't get it up, we expect that floor to be painted in that unit because we're charging top dollar and we want to have our units that are available to be viewed by the public to look good. But you got to set all those expectations up, then follow through with your inspection so that your employees know what you expect as an owner. If you're interested in what we do, you can get our inspection report, but I encourage you to create your own based on what your business goals are. You can also get our checklist on what's involved in taking over a project as well. Now, we have just skimmed the surface. We haven't talked about marketing. But these are some of the best practices today for putting a storage project into service. The marketing can vary depending on what part of the country we're in and what submarket we're in. Sometimes we immediately have auctions, sometimes we don't, and all that will depend on the facility that you're buying. But what you do in the first 30 days often sets the tone and the pace for what's going to happen in the life of that project. I'll promise you there'll be surprises. I promise you you'll make mistakes and learn along the way. But I feel it's important to go in knowing a certain amount of what you're going to do and then be able to adjust and react based on what actually unfolds as you implement putting your first or your next storage facility into service. Nothing I said here is rocket science. I've also got an ebook and a number of training videos on the benchmarks, the KPIs, key performance indicators that we monitor and track daily. If you're not sure what those are, click and get a link to the ebook. And this is what we have kept our eye on to keep our business functioning as well as we think they can perform. And don't hesitate to reach out and ask or post a question and let other members of this community answer and share their ideas. I'm sure I've got many, many good ideas that we've tested and implemented just from input in some of the comment sections on these videos and these blogs. So I invite you to do that. But here's what I know. When you put your first self-storage facility into service, you've taken a big step on creating and moving towards the life that you want to create for yourself and your family. There is nothing better than a self-storage business. I love every aspect of this business. And I love who we get to be as we grow in the self-storage industry. This is the end of the Getting Started series. I hope this supports you, and I want to hear from you as you move into or grow in your self-storage business. Thanks a lot. My name's Mark Helm. I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage. I look forward to being with you next week And we're starting a series on what I think it takes to be successful today in the self-storage business. I look forward to sharing those ideas with you. See you then.